So good evening. Hello, friends and family, astrology lovers. My name's Shannon Gill. I am an evolutionary astrologer and life coach, Jungian life coach. And I'm really happy to be presenting tonight on a topic I'm very passionate about. I appreciate the EA Network for inviting me to share, and for all of my clients and friends that will be tuning in tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and, before I get too far into anything, go ahead and share my screen with you. Here we go. And so tonight we're going to be diving into this 2019 summer eclipse season material. And just a little bit more about me. My name again is Shannon Gill. I was a student of Maurice Fernandez School of Evolutionary Astrology. I have a degree in Buddhist psychology from Naropa University in Boulder, Colorado, where I also minored in dance music and art therapy. And I am really passionate about infusing different modalities of healing, astrology being sort of, as we know, the map, but then also taking people deeper into the terrain of the body and tools of working with the mind. Another one of my main passions in life is dance. And I was the founder of an ecstatic dance community in Boulder, Colorado in 2005 called Rhythm Sanctuary, which was basically, if you're familiar with ecstatic dance, it has that component, but there was more of a ceremonial component to it, where it was kind of like a resurrection of the ancient shamanic trance dance, where it was the entire community, the tribe, the elders, the children, a ceremonial intentional format, specific music chosen to take people into these altered states of consciousness. And I seeded a dance in Denver as well that's still going strong today and has like 200 people every single week. I live in Austin, Texas, and I am the co-founder of the Shift Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization that is basically providing programs for spiritual consciousness, healing, embodiment, integration, ceremony, celebration with my partner, Russell Olhausen, and we operate a retreat center down in Austin, Lotus Bend Sanctuary. I'm currently the president of the Astrological Society of Austin, and I also sit on the board for OPA, the Organization for Professional Astrology. And I'm a mom. I've got 2 kids, so I'm a Virgo, so I'm a master multitasker, always trying to embrace my Pisces polarity point and learning when to let go. So we're just going to go ahead and dive in here to the material. Love this quote by Adam Gainsbourg. An eclipse is a physical manifestation of an extraordinary evolutionary possibility. To leave the known world behind and gain access to a very different reality with direct gifts for improving things when we return. That's why we call it a portal. So what we'll be covering tonight is we're going to define what exactly is an eclipse and how it relates to evolution, how eclipses are known as portals and to our destiny and why that is. We will look at the window itself and how long it lasts. Then we'll dive into the specific archetypes that we'll be dancing with the axis of Cancer Capricorn. We will explore each of these events independently, of course, and any aspects to the eclipses, how it's going to affect you, and then some tips on how to best to navigate. And I really like to teach to speak to non-astrologers, enthusiasts, and so I feel passionately that you can know just a little bit about astrology and continue to be curious and learn and have it really serve your life. You don't have to be an astrologer. So just in case you're not familiar with evolutionary astrology, there's many different kinds of astrology out there, many different sects. Evolutionary astrology, this is a quote by Stephen Forrest, embraces paradigms and methodologies which specifically measure the growth of the soul from life to life. These methods invariably focus on the planet Pluto and its relationship to the moon's nodal axis. So I also integrate archetypal astrology. I think I missed that in my bio, but I went to the Archetypal Academy after I went to Naropa, and I find that archetypal astrology complements evolutionary astrology really well. So the archetypes are sort of in a certain kind of way, the clothes that we're wearing or showing up with in this lifetime. Whereas the evolutionary lens, we are able to see through the multi-lifetime, the multi-dimensional journey of the soul. And so when we're looking into the chart through that lens, we're looking at the nodal axis, the moon's nodal axis, and the placement of Pluto. So what is the nodal axis? It's also called the lunar axis. So it's not actually points in space. So the reason why this is so important that we're talking about the nodal axis, because that's what creates the eclipses. So they're actually intersecting points of the moon's orbit and the plane of the ecliptic, which is the apparent path of the Earth around the sun. And those points where they intersect are called the nodes of the moon. So there's the descending, which is the south node, and then there's the ascending, which is the north node. And they always fall in opposing zodiacal signs in the chart. So they're opposites. The lunar axis is sometimes known as the destiny line. The reason this is because it gives us very powerful and specific information in the natal chart about where you've come from in previous lifetimes, which is the south node, often known as K2 in Vedic astrology, which is how you've shown up, who you are on this deeper soul level. It's innate in you. It's you've kind of been there, done that. So it's your gifts, it's your orientation in a lot of ways. But what we can assume is that there is shadow material in that particular archetypal arena, and that the soul has agreed to come back and to resolve. And so whenever, we think about it from this perspective through the evolutionary lens, we are not passive participants in our evolution. We're actually divine co-creators in this mystery unfolding, where we have more, I don't know if control is the right word, but we have more capacity to engage based on knowing that our link to divine consciousness is creating the very dynamic, which are our challenges to figure out. So the south node comes with all these gifts, but then it also comes with this karma. So the south node is known as our karma. So and then you look into whatever archetypal arena that is, and there's, a spectrum of light and shadow with every archetype. So maybe the specific energy was abused or manipulated, or perhaps it never fully came to manifest, or it was in the shadow expression rather than the light. So that's the south node. The north node, the opposing nodal point axis on the axis, is known as Rahu in Vedic astrology, and it's what our soul is reaching for in this life. This is, if we're committed to balancing out the south node, the formula is to reach for the polarity point. And so it's just like everything in life, we're trying to always find center. We're trying to find balance of duality, masculine and feminine, light and dark, good and bad. So the nodes are very specific and powerful clues in the chart to what those themes are that we're working with in this lifetime. And so the north node often shows up, that archetypal arena, as places that maybe we're afraid of, or that we resist, or we project onto other people, or we have resistance to. And that's the very area that our soul has agreed to integrate. Sometimes we have to leave behind the past in order to reach for the integration, the default of being the past. But the eventuality is that there's a merger, that there is a unification of the archetypal polarity points, and often we'll seesaw between them. So there's also a transiting axis. So just like all the planets are transiting in the sky, right? The lunar axis is also transiting. And so this is the collective soul process. And this is important for tonight because that's what's creating the eclipses. So we will just go ahead and talk more about what is an eclipse. So they come in pairs, usually. And it's either a new or a full moon that falls upon the lunar axis. They're approximately 6 months apart. So we have eclipse seasons, and then it's when during a full or new moon falling on the lunar axis, what's happening is that one body is obscuring the light and creating a shadow on the other body, either the sun or the moon. So for a solar eclipse, for example, the sun and the moon both have a very similar size when viewed from the Earth. So when the moon passes in front of the sun, it blocks the light from reaching the Earth. So that's a nice little Getty image to sort of display. So a solar eclipse is a new moon. It's when the moon is obscuring the light of the sun. It's the birth of a new cycle. Just like monthly, we have new moons. So eclipses are like supercharged new moons because the implications are further reaching. They're not just for that lunar month. They're for months, if not years ahead, the chapter. Lunar eclipse, of course, then would be the opposite, the full moon. And it's when the Earth is obscuring the light of the moon. And this is the culmination of the closing up of a chapter. So as I said, they usually come in pairs. However, last summer we had 3 back-to-back eclipses, if you remember. All the while we had 6 planets retrograde. So it's good we are all here. We've all survived, most of us anyway. So nations, like stars, are entitled to eclipse. All is well provided the light returns and the eclipse does not become endless night. Dawn and resurrection are synonymous. The reappearance of the light is the same as the survival of the soul. So I chose this quote because in history, eclipses created a lot of fear and there was a lot of superstition around them. There was paranoia. If you think about cultures and tribes that orient their entire existence around the seasons for planting, for harvesting, all of those things, for planning. And then a day comes along where the sun disappears or the moon turns red. They were freaked out, basically. Eclipse literally means abandonment. So the disappearing of the light, the sun abandoning the Earth. So many different cultures had rituals around trying to protect themselves. This is a photo of in China. They believed that it was a dragon eating the sun or the moon, and in Vietnam it was a frog. And so I've seen images of rituals being done, like banging pots and pans to try to ward off the evil spirits. And, they also became aware that during this mysterious time where the light disappeared, big things would happen. There would be deaths, wars would start or end, natural disasters would happen, a lot of people crossing over. My father and my brother both passed away during eclipse windows, during Libra eclipses, which we'll get into, that there's cycles of eclipses and the themes around the specific axis are very important to pay attention to. So what's really going on here? What is this? Why was there fear, or what is the metaphor, and how can we understand this? So breaking it down a little bit more, a solar eclipse, of course, is a new moon. The sun and the moon are together. They're conjunct in the sky. So this is just sort of a basic, understanding before we get into sort of the deeper. This is representing the masculine essence. So it's energy moving outward. It's material reality, often kind. The light of the sun is our consciousness, is obscured by the moon, by our emotions. So usually these are events that happen outside of us. We're going to be questioning our motivations and our purpose, and is our personal will in alignment with higher will. Things can come in, opportunities, things out of the blue, things can get taken away if we're, maybe not exactly right on the right path. So it's a birth of a new cycle, just like a regular new moon. Something is being birthed. A lunar eclipse, of course, is the ending of a cycle, a culmination of process when the sun and the moon are opposing. We're talking here about the feminine, the unconscious, emotional, spiritual realm, the internal world, where the light of the moon is obscured by the Earth. And so it's a little bit of a different equation, right? It's like the emotions and bringing up the past. The unconscious material really arises during these cycles. Again, very important to look at the themes of the Cancer Capricorn cycle, which I'll let you know when those are here shortly. And it's often relationship focused because it's about that opposition, right? The sun and the moon opposing. So why are they known as portals? I mean, so what is a portal? A portal is going from one place to another. And why the fear? So if we think about astrology and we think about the planets, it's really important to realize that the planets are not doing anything to us, which certainly felt like that the last 2 weeks with the oppositions of Mars, Pluto, Saturn, and the South Node. But really and truly, we are just in this dance together. We are in this cosmic symphony of movement. And so the metaphor of the planet-specific energies are reflecting specific process within us in a soul level. When the lights are out, right, the eclipse happening, our normal capacity for function or perceived control of our lives, right, our ego, is blocked. If you think about literally the metaphor of the sun being our consciousness and the light being out, we can't necessarily see where we're going. And there's a real acceleration of the energies that are present. And it doesn't matter, this is a non-dual process, good, bad, or ugly, whatever's going on is sped up. Just like I shared with you that my father and my brother passed over during eclipse windows, they were on their way out, so it sped it up. And this is very common that people pass over, and a lot of souls come through. People that are walking a fine line between light and dark will fall oftentimes. And it is a time when sudden amazing things can manifest. Seeds that you planted long ago, or just surprising opportunities that are blessings from the universe that you jump quantum leaps ahead into your creative actualization. So it's nothing to fear. It really requires trust that even though sometimes the process is painful of life taking something from us or something shocking us into a new awareness that brings up emotions, that ultimately this is necessary for our soul's forward movement on our evolutionary path. And if we're on the wrong, we've veered off the path, sometimes we have to be woken up and shocked into getting back on course. And that's why some of these sudden things that happen during eclipses are actually an influx of higher inspiration, of higher guidance that are coming through. So it's basically speeding up the inevitable. So it connects to our soul's evolution because the higher forces are taking over. Time stops. There's access to multidimensional experience and reality. Being sensitive to the subtle energies, the dreams become more tangible in a lot of ways. Karmic themes really come up. So again, we're talking about the nodes. We're talking about our deeper soul's karmic purpose. So really tuning into what is your soul up to in this lifetime? We know we've got our job, we've got our family, we've got our roles, but what is your deepest blocks? What is your deepest calling to manifest, to be, to express? So these are the big questions that come up during eclipses. And if you're finding alignment, then these are the questions to be asking. Eclipses are high octane lunations that help illuminate our karmic path. But just as these cosmic events can be visually striking, eclipses can be dramatic. Absolutely. To be expected. All right, so now we're going to just go ahead and dive into the specific timeline that we're looking at. We are having Cancer and Capricorn eclipses. So those are the energies we're dancing with. That's the karmic story. As I mentioned, the metonic cycles are there's a 19-year orbit that the nodal axis takes around the zodiac. And so we look back 19 years to when the last time this cycle started, Cancer Capricorn, and that was around the fall of 2000. So you can think for yourself for a moment what was going on in your life. You know, it's just the millennium just happening, Y2K. I know that I moved to Boulder, Colorado, and that's when I started Naropa, my Buddhist university. 2010, 2011, 9 years later, they are in an opposing position to when they started. Think back to that time. For me, I was starting Maurice Fernandez School of Evolutionary Astrology. So there's an educational theme or component for me. Now speed up to the current moment, and we are here again with the Cancer Capricorn eclipses. And for me, I'm starting a Dharma yoga teacher training, which is an integration of Buddhism and embodiment, you know, yoga practice. So just to share a little bit about my personal themes, and that's not all of them because there's definitely a lot more going on under the surface, but that's one of them for me. So you can just meditate upon that. But here's if you want to take a snapshot or you're curious about the events over the next, through this cycle up through July, next summer. I'm not going to name them, but if you're interested to keep them, you can go ahead and take a screenshot. So those of you who were journeying with me in our Cosmic Cafe, we know that we started 2019 in an eclipse window. So that was a powerful time to be making intentions. You know, we actually know that the new year doesn't really start until the spring equinox officially, but people in the collective are making intentions around that time. I'm going to ask whoever just came on to please mute if you're not muted, please. Thank you. And so that was January 5th. That was the Capricorn solar eclipse. And so now we are looking at this summer's eclipse. So again, it's about 6 weeks, the portal or the window. As I said, the cycle started in 2000 this time around, and then 2010 and 2011 was the next time, and then now. So June 17th was the opening of the eclipse portal. That was the full moon in Sagittarius. So that's when the gates opened. So that was a couple weeks ago. And that was also when we were having all those oppositions with Mars, South Node, Saturn, Pluto. So it was a very fiery, intense birth into this portal, right? Which I feel was a catalyst to triggering the emotional body. Because as you'll see when we dive into the Cancer archetype, which is this next eclipse, it rules the emotional body. So yes, July 2nd, solar eclipse in Cancer. July 16th will be the lunar eclipse in Capricorn. And August 1st will close the window with the Leo new moon. So Cancer Capricorn axis for the nodal axis was November 6th, started November 6th of 2018 last year, and will leave May 5th, 2020. So that means that as long as the nodal axis is in these signs, that's the signs that the eclipses will fall. We must remember that the nodes, unlike other astrological factors, moved backwards in the sky. As the nodes move backwards through the signs, they describe an involuntary spiral, like the unwinding of the spool of thread. This backward movement is a recapitulation of what humanity and individuals have already experienced, an activation of patterning. It may seem as though the past rises to meet us, bringing history back to life, sometimes in an unwelcome form. We have unfinished business. Lynn Bell. We had the pleasure and honor of having Lynn here in Austin doing a retreat with the Astrological Society, and I ran across this quote. So it is important to understand that the nodal axis moves backwards through the zodiac. So before it went into Cancer Capricorn, it was actually in Leo Aquarius. So that is just also another reflection of that we're going back. We're going back, and it's a time to clean up unfinished business. So now we're going to dive into the archetypes. Cancer. So again, I integrate archetypal, evolutionary, and I also am interested in esoteric astrology. So esoterically, the archetype of Cancer is known as the gate of man. Cancer represents the foundation of creation. It's the diffused light of substance itself, the dark light of matter. Cancer is the light awaiting the stimulation coming from the soul. This sign is the gateway into incarnation for the soul to gain the experience needed for evolution. All human lives begin here. Through the gate of Cancer streams the magnetic magical light, which guides the soul into a dark place of experience. The first whispers of intuition in the soul's journey are heard through Cancer. Cancer represents the spark of consciousness that is brought forth as the spirit. In Cancer, the influence of spirit begins to make its presence felt, and man becomes a conscious personality. Cancer is the fusion of the physical body and the soul. So if we think about, the evolution of the soul through the 12 zodiacal signs, we can actually think about it as the developmental process, even from being born literally as a child. You're born in Aries, instinctual, the fire of creation coming through, and then you transition into Taurus and you become very tactile, and you're taking in the world and the earth, and you're starting to learn what's important and what you value. Then you're learning how to communicate and orient yourself towards the world. Gemini, the time that you start learning to talk. And then that's whenever you enter Cancer. And that is the archetype of the mother. This is the parents. This is the crib. That's where the soul gives birth to the ego, where there becomes a embodiment and a personal connection to the self. So this, whenever we're in the evolutionary place of Cancer, it is the embodiment of the ego and the energy turning back towards the center, and where we form a relationship to our emotions, which is rooted in our crib, our personal parental environment. And this is where the foundation of our inner security is born, right? So your security or lack thereof was rooted in your childhood environment. I mean, you could even go back to being in the womb. There's so much work done about preconception trauma and, the experience of the soul or the fetus, before it actually comes into the earth. And so this is where we're talking about, again, evolution. This is where we're learning to move from external security, which is where we learn about it, right, with our parents, specifically our mother. This is Cancer, the mother, to internal security. That's the journey. So if we think about the water signs in the zodiac, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, it's in Cancer that we have our first orientation to our emotions. Then through Scorpio, we go into the underworld, into the shadow realm, to all the places we've been hurt, and producing these emotional shocks in order to produce the awakening. Pisces, the return to that external security, is ultimately an illusion. So that is sort of the soul's evolution through the water signs. But now that we're in this time of Cancer, we're going to be looking deeply into our connection, emotional body, where it's rooted, and all of the elements of this mother, divine feminine energy, and how we embody it or not. So the archetype is the nourishing mother. This is the big mama, Mother Teresa. There's so many beautiful expressions of this archetype in history. The purpose, the sole purpose, every archetype has one, is to nurture, to protect, to defend, to love, to feed, to receive, to be in process with. And so again, this has to do with our relationship with our mothers, with the women in our lives, with our own internal feminine, with Gaia. And it also has a connection literally to our home, to our roots, and to our needs, our emotional needs. So just a few more components. I always found it interesting that it's probably the most sensitive of all of the archetypes, and yet it is represented by the crab, of course, with its pinchers. So if it's so ultra sensitive, it's going to want to protect itself, right? And so that's the hard shell. So cancers typically are very uncomfortable with direct confrontation. That's why, like the crab, they move sideways. And if they don't feel safe and they feel protected or they feel defensive, then they will get their pinchers out. And yeah, my partner is a Cancer, and we have this running joke that I like to share. I'll say, you know, he's all in his crab shell, and I've got Mars on my sun. I'm quite direct, and I'll say, just let me in that crab shell. And he says, no, you want to eat me with butter. So it's been a dance to learn how to become more subtle in the dance that we do as far as orienting together. But ultimately, they are the most warm and nurturing and sensitive of the zodiac. And it's healers, you know, they're connected to the divine mother, so intuitive and empathic, ruled by the moon, you know, the cycles, you know, the different waves of the ocean of the emotional world. As we know, every archetype has a shadow. The Cancer shadow is emotionally unstable, crabby, lacking objectivity, can be dependent. Again, if we're talking about, we're, you know, looking at the security or lack thereof, it can be looking for security outside, emotionally manipulative, abusive, you know, the martyr. Oh, you know, if the Cancer is not taking care of their own personal needs because they're busy taking care of everyone else's, often you will hear about it. It's the, oh, poor me, I do this and I do that, and no one, you know, no one gives me this or that. And that's why it's very important to take care of our own emotional waves and emotional world so that we can fill our well and actually have something to give from. So that's some of the shadow aspects, which is important to understand whenever we're looking into balancing the archetypes. So Capricorn, the opposite sign of Cancer, is esoterically known as the gate of God. So Cancer is the gate of man, right? Where the soul employs the ego into form to be able to process life. Capricorn opens the doors into hierarchy and a higher aspect. In the zodiac, in the houses, the 4th house is Cancer, and the 10th house is at the very top of the chart, is Capricorn, the highest point in the chart. Capricorn is ever the sign of conclusion, and this is the mountaintop, is frequently, though not always, the symbol for it marks the point beyond which further ascent in any particular life cycle is not possible. This sign is, therefore, the sign of what has been called esoterically periodic arresting. Progress becomes impossible under the existing forms, and there has to be a descent into the valley of pain, despair, and death before a fresh attempt to scale the heights takes place. Capricorn is, as a consequence of all the above, in the signs which it is inaugurating a new cycle of effort, whether this effort is in connection with the individual man or with the initiate. Effort, strain, struggle, the fight with the forces native to the underworld, or the strenuous conditions entailed by the test of discipleship or initiation. So we talk again about the soul's evolution, you know, after the soul is transitioned out of Cancer, it has this firm, solid foundation of security from the family. Then it goes into the sign of Leo, which is about expressing its soul, creativity, your legacy. You're embarking into the height of your creative expression and individuation. You know, like Mark Jones says, singing the song of your soul. If you feel good about yourself because you've been reflected that as a child, then that is where you get to shine like the sun. And if there's fractured self-worth and self-esteem from the childhood, then there can be ego distortion. Then it goes on into Virgo, and Virgo is the highest level of the mastery of the individual self. You know, after through Leo, it understands like its genius, its God self, and what it's here to express in Goddess, of course. And then it understands that it's time to take it into service. And so in there we go into service. And then into the third quadrant, into relationships. Oh, okay, well, it's easy to be enlightened on the mountaintop by yourself. And then the soul realizes it can only go so far alone. Into Libra, we get into relationships. And then the 8th house, that mirror often takes us into the depths, because we want more connection, we want more depth, we want more union. We're longing for spirit, we're longing for connection, and through that longing it takes us into our pain. But through that underworld journey, we gain our wings, we shed the skins like the snake, and we come out in a higher vibrational state whenever we're surrendering that which has been weighing us down. And we get our wings like the phoenix, and we ascend into Sagittarius. That's where we can understand that everything happens for a reason, and we can be optimistic, and we start having access to higher consciousness. And then we reach Capricorn. That's the height of the chart. It's when the soul has reached this high state of consciousness, knowing that we are one with source energy, and that's where God meets man. And it's where man meets God in Capricorn. And that's when God comes through into form and creates systems. So Capricorn is about the creation of form, the creation of all of our systems, our foundation, our societies. So theoretically, and in the highest, it's the building of the temples, God in transmission into man to create a sacred society. That's why Capricorn is so oriented towards the building and the preservation of the container. So looking a little bit now deeper into the archetype of Capricorn, what's the evolutionary intent then? It's to realize that we are here to contribute. It's to realize that we are here to bring spirit into form. Capricorn is earth, form. We're here to create systems that are solid, that are humane. It's a maturing, it's a process of maturation when we're in Capricorn. It's realizing we're not in the just party all the time Sagittarius mode anymore. The adventure, it's like we have to get busy. We've signed up for something. The world needs us, especially at this time in evolution. We're at a tipping point. We all have to do our part. So with Capricorn, it's about maturation, taking responsibility, embodying your mastery. What are you here to do? Focus, intention, discernment, mastery of time and space, structure. It's the waking up of remembering that we don't have time to waste, and that we have a very important role that we have actually chosen from an evolutionary perspective to plug into the collective puzzle right now in order to facilitate the collective evolution and to try to rebalance the light and the dark on the planet. So it's embracing universal law. It's about self-responsibility, integrity to soul. And it has to do with, the connection between, which in the highest sense, it's your career. If really what we want to do is align our soul's purpose with what we're doing every single day, right? That's the hope. And so that's why it is connected to our work. It is ruled by Saturn, and so it has 7-year cycles as well. So I think most of us have probably been aware that every 7 years we're going through some kind of a major change. It's in archetypal astrology, it's the elder leader. It's the ruler of time and space. It's the bringer of alignment. It's about integrity. This is the wise elder, the clan leader. It's about mastery. It's these crazy mountain goats that are one step at a time up the mountain, just holding on for dear life, not looking back, not turning around, one way only, and that's to the top, to the ascension, to the top to find success. What is success? That's the question. Also has to do with boundaries and emotional maturity. So again, we're looking at the polarity point of Cancer Capricorn. And I'll get into that a little bit more in a second, but just here are some more examples of this energy. It's usually leaders, you know, the elder leader, it's the president, it's the CEO, it's the bringer of truth. It's the tribal mother, you know, the tribal clan mother, you know, and it's interesting because this is sorry, my light just went out. This is a femininely ruled sign, and yet it has a lot of these more masculine sort of elements to it. And so again, this is not about gender. This is about energy. This is about balancing the internal masculine and feminine. Capricorn is often known as the father, which is so interesting because it is a femininely ruled sign, and Cancer, the mother. And so it's just sort of interesting to meditate upon that, where we are kind of dealing and reeling with this patriarchal imbalance right now on the planet. And when we feel into this dance between the mother and the father, or what are these traits of Capricorn and how do they relate to masculine versus feminine, it's a good contemplation to go into. So some of the shadow traits of Capricorn: harsh, cold, cruel, cut off completely from the emotional realm. So again, the polarity point, devoid of emotion, judging of emotion. This is one of the shadows, the patriarchy, only concerned with the self and their ambition, success, power, control. It also can touch in on a personal level with suppression and repression and depression. It can be a cruel aspect to this as well. So when we look now at this polarity, what we're trying to do is find this balance between the Cancer and the Capricorn. What are we looking at? You know, what would that look like theoretically? So basically, it's the integration, the balance of the home and the family, Cancer, and the work and the structure in the outside world. It's a balance of doing, right? Capricorn, doing, and being, Cancer, being in the process, being present with the family, not just always working, not just always worried about the bottom line and the structure and the money and the responsibilities. The balancing of the masculine and the feminine energies, really big for us this year. It's really up in the collective field right now. It's very good that we're doing this and looking at it on an internal level. Emotional maturity, not being out of balance in the Cancer way and being ruled by your emotions, and not being out of balance in the Capricorn shadow of being completely shut off of the feeling realm and the feminine principle, which is why the patriarchy can so blindlessly desecrate the earth. Boundaries, Capricorn, with compassion within relationships. There's also going to be a really strong focus on our literal relationship with our parents. You know, if we're talking about this axis of the mother and the father and bringing up all these old emotional patterns, there's going to be an opportunity to do some healing, to reach out, to follow the root past maybe the parents, past the mother, looking further into the mother line. Or there could be some shifts in the actual dynamics between the parent and child during this. I had two friends in the summer, the first eclipse cycle. One's mother passed away and the other's father had a stroke. So there's just a lot of focus on the parental relationship. There's going to be, this conversation around the patriarchy. And for me, I had this big aha when I was in Europe in April. There's all this focus outside, the patriarchy, the imbalance of the masculine, pointing the finger. From a metaphysical level, we understand that there is no outside. So whatever we're seeing, whatever's so triggering, whatever's such an imbalance, the way to work with that is to look inside and see what is true of that imbalance and that energy in yourself. So for me, I realized I have a very strong inner patriarchy. I'm a single mother, and since I left my marriage, I have had to bust ass, basically. And what I've learned and what I'm working with is that I've been in overdrive in my masculine energy, thinking that was necessary, that I had to go out and do it and manifest. You know, masculine energy manifests outward, goes, you know, it's energy moving out. Whereas for the feminine, we actually are more powerful when we're in a state of surrender and we are magnetizing that which we want and need. So these are these subtle dances that we can work on within ourselves. And if we can find that marriage of that equality inside, then we'll start to see it on the outside. So retracting some of the projection and doing personal work is very important. You know, looking at our authority. Who's our authority? Is it outside of us, Capricorn, or is it inside of us? And then also honoring and protecting the biggest mother of them all, the earth, on a daily level, and not getting in a hurry because we're so busy, Capricorn, needing to get to work, that we toss the plastic bottle in the trash because the trash can is full, right? So little things like that, caring, being present with the beingness of life, Cancer, preservation, and not so concerned about hurrying and manifesting, Capricorn. So Christina Caudill, I loved this quote from her, so I borrowed it. We're starving for soul nourishment, yet addicted to efficiency and competence. I mean, this is the imbalance of the Western world. You know, we're defining our worth and our happiness from what we can achieve and experience and have on the outside, all the while creating more and more of a loop, chasing our tails and becoming more and more deficient of that which is we're truly looking for. It's like being on the hamster wheel. We're looking for deep, innate peace and connection to source. We're looking for it, you know, generally speaking, on the outside very often. So it's through returning to the feminine essence of Cancer, which is just being present with the experience of being, the simple things in life, family, we can actually fulfill ourselves on this deeper level. All right, so let's just look now at the cycle directly. I already mentioned that the eclipse portal opened with the full moon in Sagittarius, which I will say on June 17th was conjunct the galactic center, which is conjunct my natal Jupiter in Sagittarius. So there was a major portal opening at the same time. So this is when we start to see the signs. This is when the ground starts shifting underneath our feet. We start to see the glimpses of the themes that we're going to be seeing. And this is also when the emotions start running high. And as I said, we started with a bang with that opposition with Mars, Saturn, South Node, and Pluto. So we are approaching our first eclipse. Solar eclipse will be at 10 degrees Cancer, which is July 2nd. So that's next week. So what can we expect? Again, solar eclipse, new beginnings. It's a birth. But what is really important to understand is that we're not looking for something that's just going to happen particularly on that day. That's why it's called a portal. The window, the 6-week window from June 17th to August 1st, anything can happen anytime during that window that has to do with the solar eclipse or the lunar eclipse. So it has to do with a birth or a death, a transformation, and also having to do with Cancer or Capricorn themes. And then again, there's more layers to that as to where it falls in your chart, which we'll talk about at the end. So tuning into the emotional layers, we're going to start getting to like, how do we work with this? Bringing more compassion and nourishment to life. Where do you need to do that? Do you need to put more attention? Where do you need to birth this Cancer energy in your life? Your home, your tribe, your literal family. Maybe it's your emotional body. Maybe you have some wounds showing up that you've, I won't say avoided, because I think oftentimes there's an organic process around when things arise. The spiral of transformation going round and round, but always going upward. We touch into things and we take on and we deal and we peel back as much as we can. And we can't do it all at once. And that's what we need to trust the process, that if something is coming up, that just means that your soul is ready to surrender yet another layer. So going into that, surrendering to that, feeling that, remember that the soul is it's necessary to go into the emotional body for the soul to evolve. Deal with the parental issues, you know, turn towards that which is being asked of you, finding more presence and space in your day-to-day life. So this eclipse is not visible in North America, it's visible in South America. And of course, we were talking about the specific energies of the eclipse being in Cancer, new moon, but there's also aspects to the eclipse. Aspects are the relationship that the other planets are making to the sun and the moon. This eclipse feels pretty buoyant, actually, because it's got the main two aspects are harmonious. They're sextiles. The solar eclipse is sextile Uranus. Uranus being the planet that is the lightning bolt of heaven in the hands of destiny, that is ruler of evolution, ruler of higher consciousness and higher knowledge. Harmoniously connecting is saying expect some positive surprises, some things that are connected to our soul's process of bringing improvement in our lives. It brings an upgrade, something that is an opportunity perhaps. Uranus is also flashes of insight. It's like that psychic knowing, that hit of being able to see something, the future. So you can maybe wake up and have a new insight about something that you've been working on. You can have freedom from nowhere, from an emotional issue that you've been stuck with. You know, this is a real beautiful opportunity. This was why taking this window with intention, embracing it, is so powerful, because we can take quantum leaps in our healing and our evolution. Saturn is sextiling Neptune. Saturn rules Capricorn, so it rules the South Node. And it's in a harmonious connection with Neptune, which rules Pisces, which is the spiritual world. So it's the material world, Capricorn, Saturn, holding hands with the spiritual world. So bringing heaven to earth, bringing down your dreams, making manifest, material gain from spiritual work, the merging of spirit and matter. So here's the actual chart of the eclipse. So for those of you who have been studying with me, the sun and the moon, of course, during a new moon, solar eclipse are right next to each other. They're conjunct there. And they're always going to be with the nodal axis. So there's the north node. So you can see they're all tightly hanging out there. And then we talked about the other aspects, Neptune and Saturn connecting there. And Uranus, it's not, it's showing the line. I guess my orbs are a little bit off, but Uranus sextiling the sun and the moon there, the conjunction. All right, so now we're going to look at the lunar eclipse. So I think that I forgot to say that the solar eclipse is actually a full eclipse, a total eclipse. The Capricorn eclipse is a partial eclipse, and it is on July 16th. So we're talking, of course, about a full moon, the end of a cycle. So these are some of the themes that we'll be looking at with this energy. And again, maybe not right on the day, anytime during this eclipse portal. These are some of the themes. It is a time of karmic retribution. Anytime we're talking about Capricorn, we're talking about karma. So we're also, there's needing to look often at the shadow aspects whenever we're talking about something we're wanting to release around, a full moon. It's also, we're on the South Node here. So we're talking about the old karma, the past, with its Saturn and Pluto hanging out there too. So what are some of these tendencies we might have? To be a workaholic, to be harsh, judgmental, shut off, insensitive, avoidance of our emotional realm, too rigid, inflexible, that inner patriarchy I'm talking about, that inner tyrant, drill sergeant. Are we dry? Are we just too, rigid in our, it's an earth sign. We can be just rigid with no water, which is why we're reaching for the Cancer archetype, which is the polarity point. It's all about water and feeling and emotion and juiciness. We're talking about integrity and mastery. Is there something that you need to claim your mastery of? Do you need to go back to school? Do you need to, are you walking your talk? You know, are you, if you're in a leadership position, you know, are you in integrity in word and action? And it's also a time to consider taking on this archetype of the elder leader, take on some leadership roles. So aspects to this eclipse, just to make things even more exciting, we have Mercury going retrograde. We're already in Mercury retrograde shadow. So that's where we have the hints of the themes that are coming through. It actually goes retrograde on July 7th through the 31st from 4 degrees Leo to 23 Cancer. So what's interesting is that it's, well, first of all, we know whenever we've got Mercury retrograde, we're going to have misunderstandings. We're talking about family and we're talking about emotions. There's going to be some emotional complexity. And so it's a time to really be patient with those that we love, because there's going to be some emotionally charged misunderstandings. We're trying to sift through things, and we're talking about security and root systems and wounds and all of that. There can be some real sort of tidal waves of emotional waters. So remembering that in retrogrades, it's a review time of how we're functioning in our lives. So we're kind of looking at how are we functioning in our emotional life, how are we functioning in our family life, how are we functioning in our relationship to the masculine and the feminine. It's the integration of the mind, Mercury, with the emotions. So it's a really beautiful time to review with a little bit of objectivity, since we're talking about Mercury, some of these patterns, these emotional patterns that perhaps we're playing out. Where are we stuck? You know, it's the emotional contortion or debris or trauma can lock itself in the subconscious layers of our beings and be driving a car. It can be very, very much on an enlightened path and still have aspects of unhealed karmic energy that needs to be moved. I definitely am one of them, that I'm visiting some of these areas right now. So how can we turn towards those and understand and trust that we on some level chose the complexity and the very wounds that we're trying to heal with curiosity, with our mind, and to try to unravel things from a different perspective. Or maybe we need to get some support. Maybe we need to do some tapping or some mind reprogramming of the neural pathways, or some shamanic journeying or something. So if there is anything coming up, this is definitely a very creative time to go into it. So as I mentioned, the first eclipse was pretty buoyant, the solar eclipse. The lunar eclipse feels quite a bit different, a little bit contrasting, as of course with a full moon, is always emotional. This one is conjunct Pluto, and in the whole story with the Saturn in the South Node. So Pluto is the underworld. It is the in evolutionary astrology, which I mentioned already, it's the area of the archetype that holds our deepest unconscious wounds. So it's can be this unconscious, really upsurge of material that can create real emotional instability, potentially, crisis, obsession, obsessive behaviors, power struggles. These are some of the Plutonian energies. But if the process is embraced, again, and trusting that everything is always perfect, there's a real potential for some major death and rebirth. Also connecting into psychic heights and visions, and the dreams are going to be so much more potent right now. So it's really a time to be in a space embracing transformation and healing, if that's what's coming up for you. In the chart of the lunar, we also have Venus. Can I ask you guys to please mute your, I hear a dog barking, mute your camera.
Marla, hi.
So yeah, in the chart, we also have Venus opposing Saturn. So that means Venus relationship. Saturn is, the planet that rules the eclipse.
Marla.
Sorry about the barking. Can whoever's there, sorry. Okay, I think I got her muted. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, so in the chart during the eclipse, Venus is opposing Saturn. So Saturn often with Venus is a crossroads. It's something to look at that it's a karma. Again, Saturn ruling Capricorn, ruler of karma. What's going on karmically in the relationships? There's going to be like a sobering sort of wake-up call around whatever's happening. If there's not any relationships going on, that could be bringing in some feelings of being cut off, feelings of lack of self-worth, often with Saturn, Venus, looking at where you might need to, or we might need to pour that love, that desire for partnership into ourselves. There can be some karmic money issues arising. But the good news that I feel is that Venus is also simultaneously trining Neptune, whereas an opposition is a challenge. The trine is harmonious. And Venus, relationships and money, holding hands with Neptune, the spiritual world, can pour in a level of sensitivity, empathy, compassion that actually can help facilitate this transformational potential healing and journey that we're going to be on. So finally, we can't leave out the story of the Saturn-Pluto South Node conjunction, which I've been alluding to this whole time, because we started out of the gates with the opposition with Mars. It's a major demolition going on of the structures. I mean, basically, it's shit or get off the pot time collectively, but we're talking this evening about within ourselves. Where are we hiding from ourselves? What is our karma that's out there going to just keep chasing us and biting us if we don't deal with? What is the toxic roots that need to be pulled up? South Node. Where are we not being honest with ourselves? Where do we have power and control issues? Where is there unfinished business? Where do we need to die and to be reborn? And again, weaving all of this together with the themes that we've been talking about, Cancer, Capricorn. So here's the chart of the lunar eclipse. Of course, it's an opposition of the sun and the moon anytime it's a full moon. And right there, conjunct Pluto, the dark mother, less than 3 degrees away. Might take a day or two off around that time. And I also just encourage us to be more psychically tuned into each other, because everybody I'm talking to is going through something right now. And it's a time, again, when we're talking about Cancer family, to reach out to each other as global family and as community and tribe, and take some time and space outside of obligation, work, and the grind to be present. All right, so what can we expect? How are the eclipses going to affect you? I know you're all wondering that, right? So the solar eclipse, if you have any planets from 5 to 15 degrees approximately in Aries, Libra, Cancer, or Capricorn, which is the cardinal signs, then you're more likely to be affected. The lunar eclipse, if you have any planets from 19 to 29 degrees of Aries, Libra, Cancer, or Capricorn. Planets are points in the chart, meaning like, the ascendant, the descendant, the MC. And now we're going to talk about where the eclipses fall in your natal chart, the solar and the lunar, excuse me, which houses. Then you take the information that we've been talking about with the Cancer and the Capricorn archetypes, right? And you apply it to, even on a deeper, more personal level, where it falls in your house. Someone else is, sorry guys, needs to be muted. Tammy, I think it's you, sweetie. You keep going unmuted. I'm gonna mute, there we go. Okay, sorry about that. Alrighty, so I'm not going to run through this twice. So again, it's not, use your intuition about if you're leaning further on the Capricorn side or the Cancer side. And if it's a new moon or a full moon, lunar or solar, doesn't really matter. We're talking about the themes in general. If they're falling in your first house, sign of Aries, sign of birth, the relationship to your instinctual self. Are you needing to take on more Capricorn energy? Bring a little more structure, grow up, be responsible, be in integrity? Or are you needing to soften a little bit, be a little bit more in your mothering, nurturing presence? That's the spectrum there with the first house. The second house, the house of Taurus. This is the house of values, resources, the house of sensuality in the body. Where are you on that spectrum of your resources? Where are you in your relationship to yourself? Self-love. Are you harsh on yourself? Are you that inner tyrant? Are you overindulgent? Are you needing to be a little bit more structured in your relationship to yourself? What about your financial world? Are you spending too much? Or are you needing to financially plan? Third house, Gemini. Writing, teaching, speaking. This is the teacher traveler. Is there something that's wanting to come to form in any of those areas where you could apply this Capricorn energy, this structure? Or perhaps you need to tap into the Cancer energy, the mother, the divine feminine, and channel and be open and bring that into form. Maybe you need to take an NVC course, nonviolent communication. Maybe your inner drill sergeant is a little too harsh in the way you're coming across with people. Maybe this is going to have something to do with your relationship with your siblings, third house ruling siblings. Maybe you need to work on that relationship there. Maybe you need to connect, write a letter to, or talk to someone in your family, and you need to integrate your boundaries with your heart being open. Fourth house is the house that rules Cancer. So this is the house of the home and family. This is the house of the mother. This is the house of the emotional body. Where are you on that spectrum between Capricorn and Cancer? Do you need to be more structured with your family? Do you need to be more present, be more nurturing, be home more? Home, work-life balance. Are there relationships in your family that need healing? Do you need to look into your ancestral line and see where some of these patterns have come from and get curious? Or maybe you want to do the whole DNA test. I know that's something that I've been wanting to do. Fifth house, house of Leo, your creative life, your children. Again, do you need to take a class to bring forth your creativity? Do you need to bring some Capricorn structure to bring something into form? Or do you need to tap into your feminine creative impulses by channeling into that arena, into something creative? Are you being lazy? Are you needing to be more disciplined in bringing forth your legacy? What are you here for? Do you need to be more structured with your children? It rules children. Do you need to be more present with your children? Sixth house, Virgo, health, mind, body, spirit integration. Has to do with your daily rhythm. Where are you? Do you need more self-love, more tenderness? Are you the drill sergeant? Are you too strict with yourself? You know, oftentimes Virgo is associated with eating disorders. Is that tyrant squeezing down and closing off that moist life force of the divine feminine? Or maybe you need to be more structured. Maybe you're indulging in too much of the Cancer that loves to feed aspect. Self-love on a daily basis, the meeting of structure and presence. Seventh house, relationships, Libra. How are you showing up in relationship? Are you needing to be more present? This can bring up commitment, as we talked about, with Capricorn. It's about realizing we don't have so much time. Do you need to commit to your partner? Or maybe you need to accept the karma that's revealing itself and actually at this crossroads end something that is no longer working. Do you need to show more compassion? Are you being that drill sergeant with your partner? Eighth house, Scorpio, shadow, sex, and soul. Joint resources. Are you needing to zip up that emotional storm a little bit? Contain your shadow. Is it out of control? Out of balance, Cancer? Maybe you want to bring some Capricorn structure to your sexuality. Bring some form to your practice, Tantra. Maybe you want to bring some focus to learning about your karmic wounds. This is the 8th house Scorpio. This is our deepest karmic shadow and our wounds. Maybe therapy, something structured to go into that, to tap into that. 9th house, Sagittarius, has to do, it's the expansion of consciousness, has to do with higher study, learning, travel. Maybe you need to bring some Capricorn commitment, focus, mountain goat energy to studying something, taking on a class. Maybe you're a little too harsh in your belief systems. Maybe you're a little bit too judgmental, a little bit too out of balance Capricorn, and you need to be more compassionate towards other people's beliefs and experiences. Maybe you need to channel the Divine Mother and travel and do some service work and feed the homeless or build homes for communities that need support in that way. The 10th house, of course, is the house that rules Capricorn. This is the house of your career, bringing, the God energy into form. Where are you in your commitment to what you've signed up for in this path? Are you bringing your soul's essence into form? Are you judging yourself? The shadow of Capricorn can be horribly self-critical. Are you needing to be more compassionate, Cancer, with yourself in order to birth that which needs to be birthed? Are you needing to activate? Are you needing to bring more of your heart into your work world? Integrate who you truly are. Bring that feminine divine love and connection into the work world. 11th house, Aquarius, has to do with evolution, has to do with humanity, community. Are you sharing your heart with your community? Maybe you need to initiate a project, structure a form to bring the feminine in, to integrate the masculine and the feminine. There's so much good work going on right now to balance these polarities. Maybe you need to take on a leadership position. Maybe you need to foster these group dynamics and be someone who facilitates these processes. Maybe you need to not be judgmental of communities. Maybe you're someone that actually should get out of your own way and step out of your comfort zone and allow your emotional process to be seen and to be shared within groups. And the last house, the house of Pisces, the house of the return to source, the mystical realm. Capricorn would say, are you in integrity with your spirit? And if you are not, or if you're suffering, bring that commitment to structure to your spiritual practice. Bring that form to deeper practice, persistence. Are you maybe shutting down that spiritual cord with that spiritual light from being too contracted in your out of balance Capricorn, where you're too focused on the outside world ambition and you're needing to soften and open up to the feminine, flowing, intuitive, receptive energies of yourself to call down that more intimate connection with higher purpose, with higher source, with the God and the goddess. So those are the houses. That's a little journey through the houses. And finally, the eclipse portal will close up August 1st with the new moon in Leo. So this is when the intensity draws back, the themes begin to clarify, future steps begin to be laid out. It's really important to understand, to remember that, again, during the eclipse, when the lights are out, it's not a time to make big decisions. You can't see. Things can change day to day. I've definitely experienced that this week. Slow down. Try to tune into subtlety. Things will resume their normalcy after the completion of the cycle. So a few more tips about how to make the most of this very powerful time. first, again, start with looking back at the themes. Look at what was going on in 2000, 2010, and 11. Connect the dots. What's going on with you now that's coming back up, and be present with that. Slow down, as I said. It's a time to really notice the subtlety. Pay attention to the signs. There's this rapid acceleration going that if we can align and tune into it, then we can actually really accelerate our own actualization, make the most of it, basically. So meditate, dance, listen to music, take some time off if you can. Be very intentional. It's a time to really get clear about the deeper meaning of your life and find that alignment and clear out anything that could be in the way. You know, if we just know that we're constantly cycling through life and death and rebirth, then we're always going to be having to cycle through some form of surrender, some form of something that we're letting go of. And remembering that's just it's nature, it's the natural part of things, and that every time we're able to unburden ourselves with another layer of skin, we get to fly higher, we get to be freer, we get to resonate at a higher vibration. The monks always thought that the deeds that were done during the eclipse window were magnified by the tens of thousands. So do some good things for other people. Put some good energy out there during this window. And then finally, we're going to have another eclipse this year, one more, and then the other one's in January, right at Christmas, just to have a little bit of extra family fun or drama, potentially. December 26th, solar eclipse in Capricorn. So that is coming, and then we'll have, of course, the lunar eclipse in January, 2 weeks later in Cancer. So they flip-flop. See where the signs flip-flop between the solar and the lunar. So again, we're always trying to find the middle point in the balance. So that's my last suggestion or advice, is that while the veil is thin, to go within, to remember that it's where we have all the answers to all of times. If we can quiet the outside noise, slow down the Capricorn incessant need to be doing and producing, and allow the energies to move through us. Just trust that there is a very natural, positive process that's always working through us, trying to help us to filter out any obstruction to the flow of light, or to let us surrender that which we tend to hold on to. In Buddhism, that's what they say is the form of all suffering, is attachment into resistance to what is. So I send you many, many blessings during this journey. I am offering a 20% off readings during the Eclipse portal. You can find me here. If you want to go deeper into some of these karmic wounds, or see where this is really showing up for you, or have me support you and wherever you are on your journey, you can find me there at shannonleegill.com, or email me and just remind me about my discount. And finally, I do a monthly Cosmic Cafe, which is awesome. It's people who want to follow the sun and the moon and the current monthly transits on a monthly basis. So I basically share what's going on that month, and I educate about those particular archetypes that are predominant. And then we do some intention setting so that we find alignment with the current cosmic forecast. So thank you so much. It's been an honor to be here and to share this with you all, and I wish you many, many blessings and safety during this intense time, and a lot of deepening and integration and good, nourishing time with that which is most important in your life, your family, and your community. Thank you.